Hello, everyone. It's Mr. Kissinger at the Citizenship Academy in Syracuse, New York. This is 5th grade math module 4, lesson 17. We're going to be relating decimal and fraction multiplication today. So we're going to be learning decimal multiplication through the knowledge that we have on fraction multiplication. So let's get started. Number 1 says multiply and model. Rewrite each expression as a multiplication sentence with decimal factors. The first one is done for you. So this is what we're going to be doing. If we look at letter A here, we have 100 little squares here, and 1/10 of that is this strip of 10 squares here. So they have that in gray. And then we have we need to do 1/10 times 1/10. So we're going to take 1/10 of that gray area, which is just one of these little squares, and 1/10 times 1/10 is 1/100th. If we look, we multiply our fractions. 1 times 1 is 1. 10 times 10 is 100. So 1/10 times 1/10 equals 1/100th. We could write that in a decimal form. 1/10 looks like this. 1/10 times 1/10 equals 1/100th. It's just going to move that 1 over 1 place value from the tenths into the hundredths place. Now let's try it with something that's not 1/10 times 1/10. We'll try it with 4/10 times 3/10. So that's the same as saying 4/10 like this times 3/10, 0.4 times 0.3. Well, 4/10 is going to look like this. We'll do it the same way that they did in the example. We'll do that one vertically here. And we'll shade in this whole part here. I'm just going to use lines to shade this part. And then we needed to have 3/10 of that 4/10. So we have 10 blocks up and down this way. And we'll do 1, 2, 3 of those, 3/10. And that's going to give us this line right here. And where they intersect, I'm going to shade that in. And in our area model here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 squares this way times 1, 2, 3 squares that way. So there's 12 in there out of 100 altogether. That'll give us 12 hundredths. 4/10 times 3/10. 4 times 3. 10 times 10. That will give us 12 hundredths, which is going to look like this. .12. Our 2 is in our hundredths place. We have 12 hundredths, 1/10 and 2 hundredths. All right. So let's try 1/10 times 1 4/10. So we have, now we need 2 of these hundreds blocks here because we're going to have more than 1 here. We have 1/10. Let's do the one, our bigger number here first. So we'll do 1.4, 1 4/10. So we need to shade a whole one of these. I'm going to use those lines again, just so we can see. We can differentiate between one shading and the other. We're going to shade this whole block here, and then we need to shade a 1/4 of this. So I'm going to section off 4 of these. We'll shade that with some more of these lines. All right, so now we have 1 and 1/4. or 1 and 4 tenths, I mean. 1 and 4 tenths. We need to take 1/10 of that 1 and 4 tenths. So we'll take 1/10 here. Lay across, and then where they intersect, I'm going to shade this area here. And 1/10 times 1 and 4 tenths is going to give us, well, here's 10. We know there's 10 across the bottom, so there's 10 plus another 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 14 hundredths. And 14 hundredths will look like this. Again, our last digit is in our hundredths place there. And we have 1/10 and 4 hundredths. Next, I have 6 tenths times 1 and 7 tenths. So I need to shade in first 1 and 7 tenths here. And then, so that's 1. Then I need 7 more tenths. So I have 1 and 7 tenths shaded. And then I need 6 tenths of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then where they intersect, I'm going to shade in right here. So this time I need to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 10 is going to give me 60. And that's 60 hundredths. And in this block over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which will give me 42. 7 times 6 is 42 hundredths. And I add those together, 60 hundredths plus 42 hundredths is going to give me 102 hundredths. So that's going to give me 102 hundredths, or 1 and 2 hundredths. 1 and 2 hundredths is going to look like this. 1 and 2 hundredths. I have 1 in my ones place and 2 in my hundredths place. Ones, tenths, hundredths. All right, so the first one here looks like they did for us. Letter A says 5 times 7 tenths. So 5 times 7 tenths was 5 times 7 over 10, 35 tenths. 35 tenths looks like this because we have 3 in the ones and 5 in the tenths. 30 tenths would give us 3 ones. If we had 30 over 10, 30 tenths, well, that would move over to our ones place because it's an improper fraction. It would give us 3. 10 tenths is 1, 30 tenths is 3, and then another 5 tenths left over, 35 tenths altogether. It's 3.5 or 3.5. And then we have 5 tenths times 7 tenths. Well, if we look at it like a fraction, we have 5 tenths times 7 tenths. 5 times 7 will give us 35. And then we multiply tenths by tenths. We get 100. We get 35 hundredths. And that will give us 0.35. 3 is in the tenths. 5 is in the hundredths. If we had 30 hundredths, well, 30 hundredths would be the same. We could simplify that. We could divide by 10, divide by 10, and we would get 3 tenths. And then we had 5 hundredths left over. And that's where we get 3 tenths and 5 hundredths, or 35 hundredths. Letter C, we have 5 hundredths times 7 tenths. Well, 5 hundredths times 7 tenths. 5 times 7 up here. So it'll give us 35 still on the top, but 100 times 10 is 1,000. So this gives us 35 thousandths. We're going to end up with 35 thousandths like this. Again, our last digit is in our thousandths place. We have 5 thousandths plus another 30 thousandths, which is really 3 hundredths. And then nothing in our tenths place now. So we see how those all kind of relate to each other. Each one of them is divided by an extra 10. So let's look at the next one here, letter D. 6 times 3 tenths. Well, we have 6 times 3 tenths. Six times 3 over 10. So it'll give us 18 tenths. 18 tenths is really 1 and 8 tenths. If this is an improper fraction, we'll end up with 10 tenths plus 8 tenths. 10 tenths is really 1, and then the other 8 tenths is right here. 6 tenths times 3 tenths. Well, that's going to look like this. 6 tenths times 3 tenths. And that's going to give us 18 hundredths. 6 times 3 is 18. 10 times 10 is 100. 18 hundredths look like this. 1 tenth and 8 hundredths. 18 hundredths. 6 hundredths times 3 tenths. Well, that's 6 hundredths times 3 tenths. 6 times 3 is 18. 100 times 10 is 1,000. That'll give us 18 thousandths. We'll put a 0 in our tenths place, 1 in our hundredths, and 8 in our thousandths. So we get 18 thousandths. All right, so we're going to stop right there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing everybody next time.